It's finally over. The 2025-2026 NHL season is down in the books. Congratulations to the Carolina Hurricanes, who defeated the Vegas Golden Knights in 6 games in Vegas to win Lord Stanley's Grail. Now, I gotta say this at the beginning of the video. We'll get into the entire Jordan Staal calling out former teammates thing in a bit. But I just gotta say, once the Montreal Canadiens got eliminated, and once this finals matchup was confirmed, I understand how good the games were, but I personally just couldn't really care all too much. I don't know what it was. It was like, man, Carolina is a team that has made the third round so often over these past few years. So often over these past few years have they disappointed in the third round. So it's kind of a given that they had to break through eventually, especially considering the high level of play they've been able to sustain these years and years on end. And then on the Vegas Golden Knights side of it, it's like, man, I am just sick and tired of this team. I know that there are some big storylines to follow. The Mitch Marner explosion, how he's finally starting to do well in the playoffs. John Tortorella taking a huge role with 8 games left in the regular season to take up a team and charge it into the Stanley Cup Playoffs. Plus all of the controversy surrounding some of the players on Vegas. I was like, man, it's the Golden Knights. I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan. I hate this Golden Knights team. I don't really want to see them do well, and they're in the finals again after winning the cup a few years ago. This is just not a finals matchup that I have the gears in me to care all too much about. And I'll say for sure, the games, they certainly lived up to more than what we were expecting. People saw Vegas shut down Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado, and they saw Carolina shut down Montreal, and they said, well, both of these teams, they're tight defensive checking teams that play a very specific style, and they're disciplined and defensive and all this stuff, and like, oh man, it's going to be so boring watching these two styles of game, the Brind'Amour and the Tortorella styles, clashing in the finals. And to be fair, this series was anything but defensively stout for the majority of its runtime. Multi-goal comebacks, multi-goal almost comebacks. No lead is safe if you're Vegas playing off against Carolina, or if you're Carolina playing off against Vegas. From an entertainment standpoint, this series absolutely delivered until the wheels fell off the bus for the Vegas Golden Knights. They ended up losing yesterday in Game 6, John Tortorella making the bold decision to keep Carter Hart in the net to prove that this guy actually has what it takes to be a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. Some may say that Tortorella's relationship that was started with Carter Hart in Philadelphia may have acted as a, dare I say, silver sword shoved into the back of the Vegas Golden Knights playoff hopes this season, because Carter Hart just could not keep it together for Vegas in this series. The first goaltender in Stanley Cup Finals history to allow 4 goals against in each of the first 5 games of the series, let alone the first 4 games of the series, which already was a record. Carter Hart totally fell apart after having a 2-1 series lead against Carolina. You can talk about Mitch Marner and the lack of scoring towards the end. You can talk about how Brandon Bussi essentially saved Carolina. There are so many angles to tackle when it comes to this Stanley Cup victory, but I wanted to focus on the Conn Smythe winner. Jordan Staal won the Conn Smythe yesterday in a decision that I think a lot of people may have been questioning for a little bit. I mean, yeah, Jordan Staal had 12 points in 18 playoff games in this run. Maybe not the most points we have seen out of a Conn Smythe winner, but as they said on Sportsnet 650 earlier last week, about 50% of the Conn Smythe voting is evaluated based off of what the player did in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. The second 50% is evaluated through what the player did in the finals. So for Jordan Staal, even though this is a guy that wasn't the top point scorer on even Carolina, period, in the Stanley Cup playoffs, He's a guy that absolutely exploded in the finals, scoring goals in each of the first 5 games. He finished off the finals with 6 goals total because he had a 2-goal game thrown in the mix there. But this was tweeted out after game number 5. Staal is the first player to score in 5 straight games to start a Stanley Cup final since John Beliveau in 1956. Maurice Richard in 1951, and Cyclone Taylor in 1918 were the only other 2 guys to do that. So even though Jordan Staal finished 22nd in Stanley Cup playoff scoring this season, he had himself enough goals to go around and legitimately put Carolina in a stranglehold position to take over this series and win. That's outrageous. Only Richard, Beliveau, and Cyclone Taylor had the goal-scoring prosperity that Jordan Staal was able to establish for himself in this final series. As a result, he won the Conn Smythe, maybe one of the lesser deserving ones when you just look at the total points, but in terms of magnitude of impact, I can understand why his Stanley Cup Finals performance took over in the minds of Conn Smythe voters. But it's what Jordan Staal said after the fact that I wanted to dive into. Staal commented that some guys just jump ship. Staal talking about staying in Carolina and grinding until his Stanley Cup win. This has got to be a shot at Mikko Rantanen and Jake Guentzel. Now this is quite intriguing because Staal, he is a guy that paid his dues. He, of course, was a former Stanley Cup champion. He won in 2009 with the Penguins. Sure, you could debate that he was not nearly as important as a center compared to Sid and Malkin, but he was still on that team and he still ended up winning a cup. 17 years later, which is the longest gap, by the way, in between Stanley Cup wins for a player, Jordan Staal wins again, and he talks about how it's been a long grind. It's been years with Carolina. Jordan Staal joined the Hurricanes in 2012. Now, 14 years later, he's winning a Stanley Cup after 7 straight Stanley Cup playoff appearances and eliminations. It's the 8th one in a row, and Staal saying, yeah, we had to grind it out. Some guys just jump ship. The question is, though, is it jumping ship if you get traded and you play there for 5 minutes? Mikko Rantanen was sent over to Carolina. He said he wasn't extending. That's why the Hurricanes sent him out. Meanwhile, Jake Guentzel, they acquired him, and he supposedly wanted to stay in Carolina, but they couldn't give him the money to do that. So the Hurricanes traded the rights to sign Guentzel a day before free agency to the Tampa Bay Lightning, where he ended up signing instead. Did Jordan Staal take this as an opportunity to kind of rub it in a little bit on some of the guys that didn't want to stick around in Carolina, or at least guys that didn't want to stick around strong enough that they would have re-signed at a reasonable dollar amount that would have made sense for the Hurricanes? Guentzel, at the very least, you could give him the benefit of the doubt where it was like, yeah, well, he was just a guy that's maybe a little too expensive for what the Hurricanes were willing to offer. Mikko Rantanen, on the other hand, that guy, I mean, he came over, it wasn't really a good fit from the beginning, he wasn't meshing with the system, he didn't play well to Brindamore's style, and then he gets traded, and guess what? Logan Stankoven comes back. And a year later, you win the Stanley Cup, and Stankoven arguably is a guy that should have won the Conn Smythe instead. In fact, you could say there were a number of guys. Blissey, Staal, Stankoven, Blake, Taylor Hall even, that could have won the Conn Smythe, and you would have had a reasonable argument for it. I personally was pulling for Hall because I was like, imagine a guy that gets drafted first overall, he has a Hart-winning season one year, he has a Conn Smythe winning season another year, all with different teams, and all while being just the most mid-normal winger in the NHL. Not anything of a Nikita Kucherov, Kirill Kaprizov level scorer. He's just a normal dude that happened to have won the Hart one year, and now he can win the Conn Smythe? I'm a tad upset he didn't end up winning it. But Jordan Staal, fine bet as well, considering what he was able to accomplish. But you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did Jordan Staal take this as an opportunity to take some shots at Rantanen and or Guentzel after winning his second Stanley Cup and proving that Carolina is a team that is capable of getting it done? Thoughts in the comment section about the win in general. I apologize if anybody was really interested in watching my playoff coverage of this final series because I just didn't have any. I don't know. I can't force myself to care about things that I just don't really care about intrinsically, but hey, it was fun hockey at least. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.